Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Kasnick. I am the director of the Animation is Film Festival that is happening right now at the TCL Chinese Six Theaters in Hollywood. So we are back for our fourth edition. Obviously we did not have a festival in 2020, but we are back in 2021. We are so excited. So for anybody in Los Angeles, please come down to the festival. There are some fantastic programs that are playing. You can see what we've got at animationisfilm.com. I just want to quickly just say that we could not do this festival without the extraordinary industry support and community support of the animation studios, our community partners, our consulates, and we're very, very grateful for all of them. But specifically, our founding partners, G Kids Variety and the Annecy Festival in France, who founded the festival in 2017. And without them, we would not be here. But also, in addition to those partners, our friends at Baobab Studios that were obviously essential in putting together this talk, a conversation with Erick Darnell and Erick Oh, and talking about their respective careers, but also leading up to the upcoming release of Erick Oh's new film, Namoo. So we're going to talk about that right now. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction to the Ericks, and then we can get started. But this is part of the virtual program that we're doing. So you can be watching this right now on YouTube, and then it will also exist on animationsfilm.com. So it can be watched at another time if you're not available, or you can share it with somebody else. So, but let me start off by introducing the Ericks. So Erick Darnell is the Chief Creative Officer and co-founder of Baobab Studios. Erick's career spans over 25 years as a computer animation director, screenwriter, story artist, film director, and producer. Erick was one of the first directors of a fully computer animated feature with Ants, which he made with PDI and DreamWorks together with Tim Johnson. He followed by serving as director and screenwriter of all four films in the Madagascar franchise, which together have grossed nearly $3 billion at the box office. He joined Maureen Fan and Larry Cutler in 2015 to found Baobab Studios and went on to direct their first 6 titles from Invasion through Baba Yaga, which have garnered 9 Emmy Awards to date. So Erick, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Great. And then the other Erick in this dynamic duo, Erick Oh, the Oscar-nominated Erick Oh, who was nominated for an Oscar last year for his short film, his beautiful short film, Opera. Erick Oh studied fine art at Seoul National University and film at UCLA before becoming an animator at Pixar Animation Studios, where he worked for 6 years. While at Pixar, Erick worked on such memorable titles as Monsters University, Inside Out, and Finding Dory. Erick then followed by directing Pig, the Dam Keeper poems, which won the Cristal Award at the Annecy Animation Festival in 2018. Erick joined Baobab Studios to create the animated short Namoo and continues to work on a variety of projects in film and animation, VR, AR, and also the contemporary art scene in the United States and South Korea. And in addition to that, Erick Oh is a member of the competition jury at Animation is Film this year. So we're really, really honored and delighted to have him. So Erick, thank you for being here. Erick, you are muted.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So I really the nature of this conversation, I'd really just like to talk about your own careers individually and sort of your respective paths, and then to kind of talk about where the two of you have merged on this current partnership and this film. But because I think you both sort of have a similar path of the journey from working with animation studios and then to going from that to independent filmmaking and embracing new technologies. But I'd like to start with you, Erick Darnell, if I may. I mean, you're a pioneer in CG animation. I say that not in an ass kissy way, but there's really no other word to describe it. With Ants being so integral into the history of computer animation. But you started as at PDI as an intern when that first started. So I mean, did you have a sense that you were at the ground floor of something that was just as revolutionary as this was?
I didn't know, but I thought it might. It was just something I was really interested in, and had been, back in undergraduate school taking classes in computer programming and seeing then especially the early work by, like Rob Abel and stuff. And it's like, at first, not even knowing computer animation existed, it was like, what is this? How are they doing that? And so it was really, for me, jaw-dropping to see that it was even possible. It took me a long time to get to a place where I could work in the industry, but it was just, that's really where my career started, was really back in like 1983, when I just decided to be a filmmaker. And part of the reason was because I was just interested in kind of trying out stuff that hadn't been done before.
But was that important to you? I mean, the idea of doing something, I mean, that has to take, I mean, an extraordinary amount of courage. I mean, to say that you're going to kind of buck the trend of what had been, animation up until that point, and you're doing something completely different. I mean, do you remember having feelings of fear of, what if this is not the future of animation and I'm kind of throwing my lot into it?
No, because I already decided that I was just going to be a filmmaker no matter what. And I wasn't going to be a filmmaker that worried about trying to fit into a definition of what a filmmaker could be. I was kind of inspired by Stan Brakhage, who was a professor at the undergrad school I went to. He's sort of like, I don't know, experimental avant-garde filmmaker. And I saw his work, which is very abstract and non-narrative. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe you could be an adult and do this, Mm-hmm. And it just really opened this whole new world for me. So I was willing to like make films and just quote, be a filmmaker, even if like only my mother would, claim to like what I was doing. Because for me, it was really good to find that passion and decide I'm going to do this no matter what. And so that meant I waited tables and worked in construction for 5 years until I had enough material together that I could go get into Cal Arts in my later 20s. But, it was never a dream of mine to direct feature films. It was not even something I thought would have been possible.
Okay. And was there a specific, in the decision to go into animation, was that something that you were always into? Was there a specific animated title in your life that sort of led you on that path, or was it just kind of more of a cumulative effect?
Well, I always loved animation. I grew up in the Midwest in Kansas, and there's not a lot of role models for like filmmakers or artists or anything, animators, and it just never really crossed my mind that like, I don't know, I'm living in a vacuum or something. I never really thought like that's a job that you could have, or that's something that people do. It just wasn't in my realm of remote possibility. But I loved animation. I'd get up on Saturday mornings, which is kind of the only time you could see it, and I'd watch The Farm Report, which was the first thing on in the morning in Kansas at like 5:30. I'd eat my cereal and wait for the first cartoon that came on at 6. And I watched Sesame Street way past when I was too old to be watching it, but it was just like for these little chunks of animation. Often I didn't know at the time, but done by kind of experimental or at least animators that were sort of independent. And so then somehow the filmmaking and the animation stuff all just kind of clicked. And a lot of what Stan Brakhage did was actually animated as well. Like he would create, films directly on film, clear leader, with the sprocket holes in it. He would paint on it, or he'd collect objects and make collages using splicing tape, rephotograph that on an optical printer, and essentially animating. And so that inspired me. I think when people ask me what my favorite film is, I'd say it's Begone Don't Care by Norman McLaren, the Canadian Film Board. It's just sort of pure animation. It's alive, it's abstract, it's filled with rhythm and color and texture, and that never grows old.
Great. So Erick Oh, I'm going to use your surnames as well, just so there's no confusion. So just thank you. Don't think I'm not a crazy person. Erick Oh, so I'm interested in your journey as well. I mean, so you studied fine art in South Korea, and then you studied film at UCLA. But what was your journey? What inspired you to work in animation?
Well, just like Erick, I grew up as an animation cartoon fan, like as a kid. But I was in Korea. I grew up in Korea, and then that enabled me to be exposed to both cultures, I guess, like some Asian, Japanese, Korean animation, and also Western animation, mostly Disney though. So, I mean, that really made me who I am as a kid. And then, okay, I want to do that. And I don't know how to do that. But as I grew up, like I started feeling like, okay, I want to study art, like, because I feel like fine art is the foundation of anything visual, including cinema, or it could be dance, design, whatever. So I kind of wanted to study the fundamental of visual art. So that's why I ended up going to applying to fine art school. So the first fresh year, so until I studied sophomore year, I was only doing painting and more of a variety of different mediums, including installation or video art, which isn't necessarily animation. But what I realized is that I'm still telling the story. I'm still telling the story. I'm still expressing my expression, And right before the graduation, what I found is like, wait a minute, I love animation so much, and animation is all about storytelling. Why don't I use animation to convey these thoughts? So my graduation piece that I did in the college in a fine art program happened to be my first short film I made. And then that changed my life. Oh my God, this is it. This is what I'd like to actually do for the hopefully rest of my life. And that's when I decided to come to the States to study more in-depth study in film. And that's when I came over here to study film at UCLA. So there I kept on making short films and short animated films. And then, that's what led me to this industry.
Okay. But then, and that has to be pretty extraordinary. So you come to the United States, you go to school in California, and then your first job in the industry is Pixar, which if you're in animation, it's pretty big. So, how exactly did that happen?
Of course, Disney at that time, okay, how dare can I be part of, like studios like Pixar, but I still submitted what I made. But what's odd was I ended up submitting my short films. I was even applying for internship to become a character animator or, whatever. So I submitted literally portfolio, which happened to be my short film reels. And then, I actually remember submitting to both departments, story and animation. But animation got me in a way. So, okay, maybe, this is how I get into this, So I started as an intern. That's how I got into it. But, at first it was kind of like hard because I never experienced this CG animation at all. But rest of the kids, they were so, trained to be a character animator right off the bat, CG animation, So first 1 month was all about adapting myself to become a CG animator. But because I was really paying attention a lot to the fundamentals and really the base of the animation, I think I was able to really adapt myself to, learn a new language of animation in a way, in such a short span of time. So that's how, I got lucky enough to be able to stay along and then start my career at Pixar as an animator. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, so this is, I think this is kind of the first area where I can kind of ask a question that I think appeals to or applies to both of you. It's like, well, what were some learnings? What were some key learnings from working at a big studio? So like Erick Darnell with DreamWorks, Erick Oh with Pixar, Disney. Can you talk about that?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was there for a long time. So it was kind of just a life of education in so many things, But one thing that's definitely true about feature filmmaking, perhaps more than anything else, is that it's such a collaborative medium. And, for the project to be a success, it depends upon so many super talented artists, coming together. And a lot of times, those artists are going to be better at what they do than I am or could ever be. And so it's easy to kind of sort of instinctually just sort of run around and put your stamp on everything because I love orange, so make it orange, or whatever. But I found that really the times when I had the smarts to actually not provide a solution, but actually say to, a collaborator we're going for this feeling or, this is the situation in the story or something, and then let them, and this thing that you've done is not actually supporting that, I don't think. And then let them either, defend what they've done or or go out and come back with new ideas, but like often and usually what ends up coming back is something that's much more well thought out and much better than anything I could have come up with, on the spot in that moment. And so you feel like at first, maybe, when I was younger, that I had this tremendous responsibility to always have the answer, to always know what needs to happen. And probably one of the best things that happened to me over the years is sort of trying when I'm at my best to find some humility, and let people do what they do, right? And then ultimately, what you're going to end up with is not what was in your head, but something that's maybe way better.
But how long did it take you to learn that?
My entire career. I mean, you might do it a little bit at the beginning and then you do more and more, but it's easy to forget yourself and it's easy to lose patience. And, there's all kinds of stress and pressure and, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line with a feature film and a lot of people with opinions. And so sometimes you feel like if you don't have something to say, that you're not valuable. I suppose in a way, that's another thing I learned is that like, when I first started, I'd be in meetings and I'd say everything that popped into my head. And so let's say maybe 50% of them were good and 50% of them were bad, right? And so then I'm the guy, like half the time that guy opens his mouth, some really bad stuff comes out. And so I realized like, no, take a moment. I don't have to like jump in and go, I got the answer right immediately. I could let it sit and then make sure it's make sure that it was going to be valuable for the conversation. And then I'm speaking a lot less, but I'm more like the guy, every time he opens his mouth, something really cool comes out. Even if it only happens once or twice in a meeting, you feel, I don't know, it just helped me to sort of find my bearings. It's like, you've got a room full of super talented people. Don't waste their time by sharing with them every single thing that pops into your head at every moment, and then it just gives other people room to do what they love to do, which is talk more.
Okay. So, Erick Oh, you're in, you're in a different stage of your career, but can you talk about those early years, working at the studio and what were some lessons that you had learned that you feel like you're applying now?
First of all, I don't know, I have to just 100% agree with Erick. Like I was going to share what he just touched upon, but maybe from animator's perspective, Erick Darnell shared his perspective from director's perspective, but it is truly, yes, it's all such a collaboration. And then like every step of the way, wow, like being able to communicate with so many people from so many different departments, that was probably one of the biggest thing I learned, through my years at Pixar, and applying that every day, even today, right? Being able to listen and also, even like being vocal about what you're capable of, but still, opening your heart and eyes and ears to really listen to the others. And sometimes admit your weakness and what you don't have. And then that's when you get to learn to rely on someone else who are even not necessarily better, but someone who could really inspire you or teach you to grow, So that type of tight collaboration and communication was the best thing I learned, during my years at Pixar. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I think that's just so true. Obviously I don't have I'm not a filmmaker like you are, but just what you're saying resonates. This idea of accepting sort of the limitations and the things that you don't know. And I think it's an easy thing to say, but it really is a very, very difficult thing to do. So I'm interested in that. So I'm gonna actually skip forward a little bit because I do have some more questions about your background, but you had touched on something on your answer. Both of you started as animators. Is there a specific time or incident that you can pinpoint this was the moment that I wanted to become a director? Or was it more of a natural progression? Like what was the transition from being an animator to being a director? And that's for both of you. So you can do one at a time if you'd like.
Yeah, Erick, you want to?
To me, it was such a natural, organic progression. Of course, from over the surface, it feels like, oh, okay, up to this moment, Erick was an animator, then he became a director. But from my perspective, I've been always seeing myself as a storyteller, even as a kid. I was drawing cartoon and I was telling the story. When I was in fine art school, I was painting a singular one painting, I was telling the story. as a student filmmaker, I was making film to tell a story. Even at Pixar, as a collectively, we were telling a story. And then on the sides, I always find a little creative personal room to actually keep on, grasp upon my own storytelling too. So everything kind of came together at a certain moment when I decided to finally leave Pixar. That's really the critical moment when I really became a director, as a role. But again, just to repeat myself from my perspective, it has been such a very consistent gradual process for me, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely gradual for me too. I mean, I never decided to be a director specifically or to be an animation director. But it kind of just goes back to deciding to be a filmmaker and
right.
And then whatever that meant, so I was the director of, everything I did for the first 10 years of my early filmmaker career. Believe me, nobody saw most of that stuff, but then stuff happens around you. So again, for me, it wasn't about finding the path to becoming a director. It was just finding the path to being happy as a filmmaker. And then, even when you're going down that hallway towards that door that you think is going to be the answer, suddenly a door, on the side of you opens up and somebody goes, "Get in here." And suddenly you find yourself doing something you never thought you'd be doing and learning from it. And maybe, who knows, it turns into a life. But, especially early on, I was young enough that I could be really idealistic about what it was I was going to do. And even when I began looking for places to go to, well, I was at PDI first, and I was so fortunate that they offered me an internship back in 1990, and I got my start there. But when I decided to get more into entertainment, I went everywhere, every computer animation company that would talk to me in the entire country. And I got offered what for me at the time was a ton of money to go work somewhere. And I thought about what that would mean, and I just said, I can't do it. And I ended up taking, less than half to make sure that I ended up in a place where I was going to be happy with what I was doing. And I just never regret that decision, and then life catches up with all of us. Suddenly you've got kids and you've got a mortgage. It's like, I better make sure I keep this job. But I guess in some ways we're looking forward to retirement so I can go back and maybe have that mindset that I had, when I was 22, 24, where I could do anything.
Oh, okay, great. Well, so, you're conjuring up this very, this great image of walking down a hall and a door opens that maybe you weren't expecting and somebody yelling, "Get in, get in here." And I have this picture of that person being Maureen Fan. So can you talk about, is it Erick Darnell? I mean, can you talk about the decision, about the starting of Baobab Studios? How did that happen? What is its mission? And what's it like working, for a startup, and why VR? That just seemed like that was not the path that you were on. So I'm really interested in that origin story.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about VR really at the time. But then a mutual friend introduced Maureen and I, and she put a VR headset on my head and said, "I think I want to start an animation company." And she had a great job at Zynga, right? So she didn't have to start a company. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And, I put that headset on, and it just blew me away. I think I was at some undersea thing, and it's just fish swimming by. Oh, there's a turtle. But it was like, oh my God, I can't believe we can do this now. And so that's sort of how it started. But we did discuss really early on that we were going to try to focus on storytelling and entertainment. Most people then and now, and I understand why, are focusing more on games and maybe social stuff, that kind of thing, which makes complete sense. But what we saw as sort of the superpower of VR, which is this idea of immersion. And so we said, well, we can do that in a world. We could put you in a place and make you feel like you're there. But what if we could put you next to a character and you feel like you understand what's going on in their head, and that they understand what's going on in your head, and that you're immersed not just sort of in this world that is everywhere you look, but you're immersed in this moment, in this relationship And suddenly when that happens, you really matter. And that is what we're always going for. We want to make our audiences feel like they truly matter. And that's what real-time VR can do, because we can react and respond to people on the fly. Characters can change their attitude depending on what people do, their action, whatever. People can make choices to go one way or the other. And suddenly you have these things that are more than just stories for the audience. They're actually memories, and so that's just pretty exciting. So that's, we say things like, oh, we're inspiring you to dream, bring out your sense of wonder, but ultimately it's all about making the audience matter.
Okay. So it's, I'd like to, I want to revisit that, and Erick Oh, I'd like to kind of get your thoughts too on, on VR in general and sort of where we think it's heading. But Erick, Darnell, I mean, can you just talk about sort of those early years? I mean, can we talk about, Invasion and Crow, which we actually had an animation as film 2 or 3 years ago, and Baba Yaga, just some of those early projects. And then I'd like to just kind of get more of a general thoughts on VR.
Well, yeah, we dug in and, we started with something that we thought was not very ambitious, but we were naively incorrect, because we thought, oh, it's just filmmaking in 3D. And you quickly realize that VR is not that. It's its own medium. It's completely different. And so we just had a lot to learn. Like, nobody's looking where we want them to look, It's like either you need to have a situation where they have the freedom to look where they want, or you need to do what you need to do to get them to look where you want them to look out of their own free will. And so when people say to me, like, what's it like doing VR? Because you have to give up all the things you used to have as a director, all your tools. Like, the tools are different, but the goals are the same. Like, you want the viewer to pay attention to what matters. You have a sound, or you have a flash of, you have things that you can do to sort of basically cut the scene to it, and when the viewer turns to see something that got their attention, you provide a perfect composition for that, that they'll naturally find, and they'll naturally find the point of interest. And so all the tools of cinema work, but there's many other things that are happening too that kind of really make it just such an undiscovered country. And so Invasion was the first piece we did, which was real time. It became the most popular downloaded thing like for years, maybe it still is. And it's a good entry point for us and others into VR. But the thing about it that kind of actually blew me away and everyone away, it's like we were watching this over and over again. And this bunny would come out of the bushes and hop across on the ice and look at you and, and then like hop around. It was actually all canned animation except for the look at function. So that wherever you stood, if you chose to walk over there, the bunny would look at you. But everything else she did was completely straight ahead. And so, but then viewers started to respond to her, and then she would do something, and then they thought, oh, it's reacting to me. And then the bunny would jump down to play, and then they would play, and then it would play more. But and people were laughing, and they were like smiling, and they were engaged, and they fell in love with this little cute bunny. And we didn't expect that was going to happen at all. We'd seen it a million times. It's like, oh, here she comes out of the bushes again. But when people were seeing it for the first time, it felt real to them. And when that character looked them in the eye and they backed up and it followed them, like that was like, whoa, suddenly they're there in another world with another character. And so that's the thing that we've sort of been driving forward on all the projects that we've done. Everything kind of pushes at different angles of it or tries to push it further, but it's always been about what can we do to connect audiences with the characters like that, which is kind of a happy accident in Invasion, honestly.
So, all right. So while that's happening, I mean, so now I think we're sort of telling these two parallel stories of Erick Darnell and Baobab, and then Erick Oh as a filmmaker. And, I think we're getting to the point where those two things converge, which I want to certainly take some time to talk about. But so while all of this is going on with Baobab, I mean, Erick Oh, can you talk about, you had directed one of the first CG animated shorts with Gas Planet. Can you talk about that? Can you talk about, the Dam Keeper poems and sort of your progression as a filmmaker? And then if you can kind of, bring it up to opera. And then I think then we're kind of at the point where then the two Ericks converge.
Well, actually, from the overall, I am really, really excited and fascinated about finding a unique vision and style when telling the story. of course, like the following tradition of cinematic language is truly important. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But I've been always, challenging myself to push the medium of animation like to multiple different directions. For example, like the Dankiba poems, even though it came out as a commercial series for a family targeted show, but I experimented a lot there. There's no dialogue. It's all music driven. And it's 5 minutes, and then there's 10 of them together. So it was able to be viewed as a one singular feature-like kind of like experience in a way. So there's a small challenge I made. And of course, the bigger challenge I, tried to attempt was through opera, because opera was I wanted to bring this animation, take it to the next level by bringing this animation to the space, actual place. So opera was designed as a museum installation animation from the scratch, and it just became an 8K scale, huge mega size animation that can be viewed on the wall or indoor, outdoor. But of course, because of pandemic, we weren't able to really release it up to now. And that's currently what we are working on at this point with our team. But that was really it. So I've been really excited to push the medium of animation. And of course, naturally, that led me to open my eyes to the world of VR. Because virtual reality, as Erick Darnell described, this is like a whole another world. As from a creative perspective, once you get to wear the headset and experience the power of VR, and you just get, oh my God, I need to push further. I need to, play my world in this world of VR. So, and then that's how I got myself interested in VR. And then I'd be waiting for the moment to actually, make it happen. And then thankfully the idea of Namoo, came on the horizon, and that really got us to get together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's no better segue than that. So let's talk about Namoo. So, I mean, that there's, which I think, as I said at the onset, is a film that I'm absolutely in love with. But it's significant because it is, for no other reason, it is the first Baobab title not directed by Erick Darnell. So Erick Oh, can you talk about, where did Namoo come from?
Yeah. So I can, thankfully you guys let me to actually have a bit of a mini presentation. I could really share a little more in-depth, story about Namoo, but I can briefly share. Namoo has been actually sitting in my mental drawer for over 10 years because I actually came up with this little story of a tree of life, thanks to my experience of actually losing my grandfather. So he passed away almost 10 years ago, but during this grieving process, I had to, because it was my first time losing someone who's very close to me, and then not even just close, but he's been my guiding star for the whole time. He's been my inspiration. There was one of the people I really, truly looked up to. So after losing him, I thought a lot about life, where we come from, where do we go? And then I ended up putting this together of story of mini tree, of memories, so that's the genesis of Namoo. But as I said, coming back to, the VR content, because Namoo is such a spiritual journey, that I really wish audience to take on. I thought, it won't be able to be told in a traditional way. There gotta be something more. And then when I experienced VR, maybe this is it, because it's all about letting the audience to the world and find themselves in the part of the story, right? So, so that's what Namoo is.
Okay, and then and so Erick Darnell, I mean, I'm interested to view your presentation. I'd like to hear more about the project, but Erick Darnell, I mean, can you talk about sort of your relationship with Namoo and then how it fit into into sort of Baobab's story?
Yeah, well, soon after we kind of got established, we started looking for people to collaborate with. It was important that everything wasn't based on me and my specific idea of what was good or not. And we really wanted to not necessarily have a style, to be able to bring in people with new ideas, different ideas, and help us sort of explore, what VR could be. And so we partnered with Matthias Cherbourg, who did this piece called Jack. It was shown at Tribeca Film Festival, which is amazing. And unfortunately, like, you know, I don't know, only a handful of people could ever see it, because it's one person going into a set with two actors with motion control rigs on that are acting with them in real time. And so, yeah, it takes like 6 people or more to like run the event while one person's inside. But it was an amazing experience. And again, just another, blinder was opened, and you saw the potential of what VR could do. And then, you know, when we saw Erick's work, for me, Dam Keeper Poems is just so super cool. I mean, you know, you could be fooled initially, you know, because of its apparent simplicity, but it has a real elegance, and it resonates with itself over the course of the story of, you know, all the episodes together. And it's clearly not, well, at least for me, you know, I really enjoyed it. It's not really just for kids, although it exists, I think, in this sort of very powerful subconscious of all kids. And so they can, I think, connect with it quite directly. It's just probably not in the same way as adults. But anyway, there's the other pieces that he described. And then most importantly, he came to us with this idea where he had done some simple boards, and you know, you could just tell in the art that he'd done and the presentation that he gave how much it meant to him. And that's at least as important as anything else. You know, when you want people with passion and depth to their ideas. And he had this idea to do it in this, you know, brand new medium of Quill, which is a program written by Oculus, where you basically can paint in 3D space and turn it into animation. And you know, we didn't know it at the time, but you know, it was really going to be groundbreaking and push this you know, pipeline or technical approach to like places it's never been before. We can talk about that kind of stuff later if there's time. But anyway, it seemed like a no-brainer, and so so we joined up with Erick, and you know, but I have to say, you know, basically he was a great partner to Baobab. You know, he listened to what we had to say, and he took it off, and he made everything better. And he made it better than like I said, than we were even suggesting. And so it was a great partnership there, and really proud of what he's accomplished.
Thank you.
Great. Well, can we see any of the Erick? Is there anything you can share with us?
Yeah. So we brought a teaser trailer that we can watch together. So this was the painting I did 10 years ago. As I mentioned, you know, the core idea of Namoo was there, you know, for a long time. And if of course, I just shared my story already, so I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit. This is my photo of me as a kid and my grandfather. We're wearing a hanbok, a traditional Korean costume. And then right after he passed away, this is the drawing I did like literally 10 years ago. And literally, as I said, it's in the picture book type. And this is what I showed to Erick Darnell, like at the time, like literally 2 years ago. And I shared why the story matters to me so much, and why this has to be in VR, and why this has to be come out now. And then we were able to really share real emotion and thoughts together. And okay, let's do it. Let's really make this into a VR piece. And then, so that's how the journey has begun. So, and then the first thing we did was to explore the look and art of it, because, you know, It really captures the individual stage of our life. And the color really matters because it celebrates the passage of time. So here you see the super rough blocking of color scripts. Even at a glance, you will have to know which part of life stage you are at. And then it goes through 4 clear seasons from spring, summer, fall, all the way to the winter. That's going to be eventually connected back to the spring. So the color and the capturing the light of the day and the mood was one of the most important things we cared right before getting into the VR space. One other thing was the shape of the tree. Because how it becomes the full tree, the circular perfectly balanced tree. We go through so many different emotions and stages of life. Sometimes sad, sometimes happy, and then the shape of the tree symbolizes where we are at in the different life stage. And our amazing art director Oh Lee was able to put all the lightings and some of the drawings I did put together and was able to come this far with this singular image which became the color master art for the rest of the production. So here, this is when we brought in the software called Oculus. Erick Darnell briefly introduced this. This is amazing software developed by Oculus. And then it really enables artists to be able to design and animate and color and paint in VR virtual space right away. Very intuitively. So this is our one of the lead artists, Nick Ladd. This is how literally you get to see your timeline and the panels that you can actually control all those every single frame and the colors in virtual space directly. So the reason why we chose Quill is because we were able to achieve the same look the Awesome was going for. So as you can see, on the left, you got the original painting Awesome did in 2D in Photoshop. And on the right hand, you see the 3-dimensional tree that's painted in Quill directly. So every single stroke you see, every single color you see is literally hand painted by the artist. No computer generated lighting or no computer generated movement. It's all hand painted. So even here is another in-depth example of the contrast between what was done in Photoshop and what was done in Quill. So it's very seamless. And then this was exactly why we went on using Quill instead of going through the more traditional computer generated pipeline. And even characters too. The upper, you see the drawings of myself and Awesome, and then Nick Ladd really put together in Quill again and not losing the charm of our original painting has. Just to give you a little more sense of how we really actually animated, here how we actually draw in the virtual space. We draw and we make strokes just like that, and we can even manipulate, transform the shape of it, and that's how we really designed it. And even though the way we animate, computer doesn't give us the in-between. So we literally set each frame with your hands, and then that's how you create the motion. So it's a whole new different way to actually animate. You have to use your brain as a 2D animator, CG animator, and puppeteer. And one fun example of how we animated the characters. So there's no rigging, there's no modeling. We just paint and move things around, and that's how we move the characters. And one more quick example. Look how he's animating the toy car flying. We could even squash and stretch. And super fun, super intuitive. So to summarize, it started from the storyboard, just like any other film. And then Awesome created a really charming, adorable concept art that really captures the right emotion and the time of this character. And then I provide a little more in-depth description of the design. So which stuff should be on the tree, which stuff should be on the ground, the color. And again, Awesome was able to put this nicely together in 2D painting, and then transfer everything into the 3-dimensional world in VR. And here's a final look. So at the end of the day, it is still very traditional handmade touch, and that that warmth, we never lost that, but still it's moving 3-dimensional. So those were the reasons why we ended up using this software. Look at the comparisons. Left, I have a super quick rough animation that became the guideline for the animators in VR. And here's another example. That's when the boy meets the love of his life, thanks to the puppy. And look at how the heart pops down. Yeah. So yeah, that's really the snippet of the one shot from a couple of shots from Namoo. And then, as I said, the painting from 10 years ago and all the way to the still image of the final piece. Look how the same, but at the same time, how different they are. That red tree has been there a whole time, but thanks to many people's love and support, especially from Baobab, we were able to put together nicely from a single painting to a 12-minute short. And even though it is deeply inspired by my own life and it's coming from a deeply personal place, I really feel like, this is universal enough for the audience to find themselves in their stories. So I really wish people can resonate, with this film. And then, yeah, so that's a quick introduction of Namoo.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
It helps, yeah.
No, that was really interesting. Erick, Darnell, can you talk about sort of what was your reaction? I think you touched on it before. But I guess when you were seeing all of this stuff and you were hearing Erick's story, what was the initial reaction within Baobab?
Well, the initial reaction was we partnered with him to make the film, and the VR piece. So that was great for everyone. But then it became a challenge for everyone too, because nothing had ever been done of this ambition in Quill before, and as Erick was showing, every frame is hand drawn. Every decision is made frame by frame. There's nothing that's really happening. There's much less happening inside the guts of the program than there is, say, in a typical CG animation program. So just the craftsmanship, and the attention to detail is just really incredible, and to have it turn out to be so amazing. And then from there, of course, we had to take that VR piece and translate it into a 2D film that you could see anywhere. Part of what we always try to do with our work is see if we can find another way for audiences to see it who may not have a headset. And we hope that and actually decide that if our stories are good enough and our characters are good enough, then we can find ways for them to exist on more than one medium. And so for that, we had to figure out how to port all of that information out of this sort of real-time Quill VR experience and get it into 2D software, and figure out our cameras and do all the things that you need to do to create a 2D film. And so just coming up with the pipeline and the processes for that was something that was brand new. We had to write special tools for it, and had a lot of minds sort of making it all happen. We're not a big company, probably less than a couple dozen people, or now even less than that. But we try to stay really lean. But the people that do work here have a lot of talent and wear many hats, and the people on Erick's crew are like the best in the world in Quill, and so we were just really fortunate that all those minds could come together and make something like this happen.
So I have a question, and I know we're kind of coming a little bit towards the end of the time, but correct me on the timeline though, Erick. So was this production during COVID? When were you working on this?
Ironically, the production timeline aligned with pandemic,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what was awesome was, like Erick Darnell briefly touched upon it. because we were using this brand new way of animating and brand new software, we were already in a COVID mode because everybody were working from remotely from Germany, Canada, like East Coast and Los Angeles and Bay Area. And most of the time I was also in Korea. So we were already actually doing that like right before the pandemic really hit us. So when that happened, production wise, we didn't get much of impact, thankfully, fortunately. So I think, again, that was thanks to this medium, that could be only possible, by a handful of people who are really expert at this medium, which is brand new, like really collected a team of pioneers in this medium.
Okay. So talk to us about what's next. I mean, so what are the next steps with Namoo, and what are the next steps with Baobab? What, how does one see it? What how do we make this happen?
Well, why don't you start with Namoo, Erick?
Well, Namoo, yeah, it is now in the film festivals. So we are sharing through various outlets, but mostly through film festivals and screenings. But I don't know, hopefully, in the near future, we can actually share it in both VR and cinematic version, like with the broader audience soon. But at this moment, we are really focusing on, sharing it in a proper, setting, theater setting. Yeah.
Well, and as far as Baobab goes, I mean, kind of like I was saying before, we're trying to create, really great IP that people can really feel connected to, and characters that people can really feel connected to. And yeah, VR is a great medium for that. But if we do our jobs right, we feel like we'll have stuff that we can bring to audiences in a lot of different ways. So right now we have a graphic novel that's being done based on one of our ideas. We've got a young adult novel that we're doing with a major publisher in New York City. I would tell you which one, I just don't remember right now. But a first look deal with the Paramount Disney. We have shows in development with streamers right now for television and film. So it's been really cool. And I think one of Maureen's genius ideas was that by focusing on VR, we could really make a name for ourselves and have a lot more opportunity to really freely test and try our ideas in a medium that was kind of, like a little bit, out of the radar or something, and really, figure out what it means to create this kind of content before the eye of whatever turned and Sauron or whatever, found us, and oh my God, we have to get that stuff, or we have to destroy them. But so far, nobody's destroyed us. And in fact, it's really gratifying that a lot of people in a lot of different entertainment industries and mediums are interested in finding ways to collaborate. So, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what we started. And that's why this is such a fun industry to be in to begin with. To me, it feels a lot like these days at Baobab now, feel a lot like my early days at PDI, a company with 30, 35 people. And it's like, oh, the client wants us to do this. Does anyone know how to do that? No. Should we take the job? Yeah, let's go. We could do it. It's a very much of a can do, our gang kind of attitude. And like I said, people wearing all these different hats and having all this ownership. And it's a big change from a great big studio, that's for sure.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm, you know how I feel about it. So I'm just congratulations to you both on on the growth of the company and and the creation of this beautiful film. And I just want to thank you both for being part of Animation and Film Festival. We're just so lucky to have you and to have the opportunity to talk with you.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. It was an honor. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, that's our hour. So for anybody who is watching, thank you so much for being part of this discussion with us. And as I had mentioned at the onset, this video will live at animationsfilm.com. We actually do have a small virtual section that you can take a look at. In addition to this conversation, there's also a panel with women in animation. There is a Beauty and the Beast reunion panel, all of this was being done on Zoom, and it's available on animationisfilm.com. So please just check out some of our virtual programmings. But Erick and Erick, thank you so much. This was a real honor for me to talk to both of you. And thank you again for being part of the festival.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Goodbye. Thank you.